Yeah, like
Start. Hello, everyone. Aradhna Tiwari from Be the Change by Aradhna. Welcome, welcome. Happy to see you all here. I am looking forward to have an amazing chat today, and I'll just wait for you guys to join in. I really can't see you guys uh, because I'm on the Zoom.
Hello,
All right.
everyone.
Sorry, guys. All right. There you are. Hey, Shafali. Hey, Ritu. Rohini. Hello. Hello, all. I switched on my phone. Welcome, 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 welcome. So it's a very exciting journey. I'm really, really excited to talk about today's guest, Maninder Kohli, the trekker, uh, oh my God. I mean, I really don't know have the words right now to express about him because I'm so excited. It's like changed my life totally. So I'm going to talk about him in a bit. So I just wanted to, whosoever is joining us for the first time, hello and welcome to the Space and Pace. So just wanted to tell you about bit about Be the Change page. So and this talk show. So this Be the Change page and this talk show is all inspired to actually uh, inspire you to never give up, never give in, never quit. And it's like uh, everybody of us knows something very special within us, and we are a gift in our own selves. But we have been so accustomed and so entrained to be in a box of how a good person should be, what how the good person should talk, what should they not talk, how to be in the society and not to be in the society, rather than what they you really truly want to be like. And that actually makes you give up your own self, and you forget on the while who you are and what you are, and then suddenly you're doing everything, you're creating the world, and but you're still not happy within. So this space and place really invites you to actually look within yourself and actually come up with something what you know, which nobody ever asks, hey, what do you know? And if you actually bring up your talent and something which is so easy for you but it's so difficult for others, and you might it be like a 2 minutes job, what if that is what actually makes you joyful, and that is the gift you have and you've been hiding that. So I really wanted to invite everybody, and everyone who has actually followed their heart and not followed the regular linear pattern of life, and showing you that journey, that how they have created their life from total space of trusting them and their knowing, and creating a future which is filled of joy, fun. And for them, work doesn't sound like a work. It's not 9 to 5 job. It's not a business which is hectic. They enjoy, they're enthusiastic about their business, their life, their living. Because when you actually do and be what you truly love, it becomes an inspiration, and everything follows. The money follows, the joy follows, the world follows you. So the invitation is to never give up, never give in, never quit. And it's so sad for today. Also I was very sad with Sushant Singh's death today, and because where he committed suicide, that is the people like I really, really would like to come say them, come talk, never give up, never give in, never quit, because it's easy to quit, and yet there is so much of help, so many of people, the world is available. You just have to ask, and that can actually change so many people's world. So the world is here, and the world has changed and shifted, and we have in a different reality now where people are actually willing to listen to you guys, to not give up. There is so much to life. You can only change it if you will be breathing, you'll be alive. Giving up is like 2 minutes job. So what if you can just challenge yourself that anytime you're getting into it, you just pick up a phone and call a friend or somebody, or watch some show or do something, but never give up. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my Be the Change intro. And I would really, really, I'm Aradhna Tiwari, by the way, and I'm an Access Consciousness Certified Facilitator. This is my joy space of Be the Change as a page where I really love to empower people. I love to invite them to look within themselves and come up with their gifts. And I'm actually taken this initiative of inviting my lovely friends who I've been knowing for a while. And today I have a very amazing friend of mine who I've invited to this journey. It's Maninder Kohli. So I'm very, very happy because he's a very close friend who actually changed my life and perspective of looking at life, because I always dreamt of going to the hills and the mountains. And he and his wife and his company is so amazing, and it just feels like home. Even if you're in their mountains with them alone, and his team, they really take care, and you really don't feel that you're with somebody new, somebody odd, and you feel comfortable, and yet you can really fulfill your dreams of what you truly desire. And it's just beautiful. It's beyond words to describe the gift they are and the gift he is. And I just love it. So I would say a few words around him, and then I will invite him to the space. So Maninder has had two distinct innings in his life. In the first innings, he's worked with Citibank for 20 years as a senior vice president, and post that, he developed himself as an expedition leader. Being the son of the legendary Himalayan mountaineer Captain Manmohan Singh Kohli explains the special place mountaineering holds in Maninder's life. In 2010, he founded Juniper Outdoor Pursuits Center at New Delhi, where he continues to motivate people to the world of adventure. And I'm really, really excited now. Maninder, please join us for this conversation. And can I have you now on screen, please?
So I'm not able to access video.
So just click on that video, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. Thank you, Maninder, for
Yeah.
choosing
Hi,
saying yes to this space and place. I am really, really honored. Thank you.
No, no, I'm
And
happy to be here.
yeah, thank you. So Maninder, I mean, I know so much, like it's so much of fun to have you here, because as I was telling everybody, that you really, really helped me changing my perspective of looking life and fulfilling my dreams to go to the hills and the mountains. And but your journey has been amazing, because I know you were working in vice as a vice president in Citibank, which is a so linear of this world, how to be, studying and then working as 9 to 5 job, creating your career, and you being at that such a position in your life, taking that call of giving up everything away and follow your heart. Can you tell us more about that, and what was your life when you were in Citibank, and what actually made you choose this different second innings?
So, what happened with me was that because of my father being a mountaineer, in the early years, I did a lot of trekking, mountaineering. But then when I joined Citibank, long hours and, tough work environment, I was kind of away from the mountains. And then 15 years into my Citibank career, I got an opportunity to take my kids out for a quick trek. I wanted to introduce them to the mountains. And in that process, I fell in love with the mountains myself, because I was reconnecting after many years, and I sort of took a decision there and then that I'd like to continue my passion and build on it. So that's how it kind of started, and that was in 2005. So now 15 years have passed since uh, I would call my second innings.
So you did not kind of had a fear of, like, well established career. You're just choosing to leave it and, moving to something very, very new with your family, with your kids. And wasn't that a scare or anything of that kind?
So, I took a calculated decision because we had other business interests, and, I'd done also a fair amount of time in Citibank. So taking all things into account, and my passion was really building up, I really wanted to pursue it, in a more organized way. So that's how I took the decision. And when I look back now, 10 years have passed since I left City. I left City in 2010. I don't regret it at all. I had a good innings there, but right now I'm enjoying my life, with a deep connection with the mountains.
So did you have any challenges when you actually left from the, that whole linear world, from, 9 to 5 job, where you were really under the stress and pressure and earning? And definitely, why I'm asking you here is because a lot of people, can you guys hear me? I had got a message that nobody can hear me much. So I had this thing, a lot of people had this, how can they just leave this well established career in their world, and they have family to look after, they have the money issues, and how will the family take care of? So how is that twist? Because that is what really a lot of people don't have the heart to actually give up and choose something of their what they really desire?
So, each person is in their own circumstances, Aradhana, and it's difficult to quantify it, but, you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons. And for me, the main issue was that I was really liking the mountains. And luckily for me, trekking was a very, very niche activity a few years back. But in the last, I would say, last 8 to 10 years, it's taken off. Lots more people are venturing into the mountains and enjoying them. Earlier, I would struggle to even get 2 or 3 people to join me on a trek. It was as difficult as that.
So did that ever give you a scare that how would you take care of your family? How would you really move forward? And did you make a wrong decision or a right decision to go forward with this?
No, I didn't look back. I just took a call and I said, let's go ahead with it and, let things pan out.
Mhm.
And I think many times you are in that, let's say, point in your life, a reflection point. And I think my feeling is that more often than not, you should go with your instincts and be positive, and things work out. And that's what happened. I feel when I look back, I don't have any regrets at all.
So you mean to say you never had any challenge at all, or there was a point, and did you use some tool to it, like you had something to saying to yourself that don't give up, Maninda Kohli, you can go further?
No, I had a lot of challenges. See, in
Yeah.
anything you try, I remember that on one of my treks, I got into a situation where I was in Nepal at an altitude of about 4,400 meters, and I got up in the night unable to breathe. I just ran out of the kind of place I was staying, and it was a very scary moment for me. And I then decided to abandon that trek because I was fearing altitude sickness. And I came back, and altitude sickness, there are very few doctors who know about this issue. It's not a very common thing within the doctors fraternity themselves. But the 3 or 4 years which it took me to figure out what the issues were which were troubling me, I was unable to trek to my fullest potential. I was looking at low altitude treks. I was a little bit kind of, going slow. And so this was one of my learnings that, if there is something which is inherently bothering you, unless you deal with that, you will never be able to, kind of move ahead. So that was a very big challenge, which bogged me down for 4 or 5 years. But when I figured out the solution for it was just a tablet which I needed to take every day, it gave me a lot of peace of mind, and then I was able to move ahead.
So I'm sure because you started trekking and on your own, and you must have gone through a lot of challenges. So what are the greatest challenges that you come across when you have to take people for trekking, and people like trust factor, like and it's they're actually putting their life along, and you have that responsibility of taking them all through. How can you say more about that?
So, between 2005, when I started my first trek, and when I started leading groups into the mountains, I took 5 years to do some kind of, I would say it was like re-establishing and getting my own understanding of, how the mountains are, what are the risk factors. I read tons of books. I consulted. I created a small mentor group, which was in touch with me. And, things like that I started doing, and it slowly was giving me the confidence. And so I do understand that there is a big responsibility, because adventure means that you're going to be out in the open. There are elements involved, but I feel that if you go about it in an organized and a proper way, you can mitigate all those risks.
So you mean nothing comes easy. You have to put yourself into it, and you really actually put your 5 years going in and out and seeing the challenges, what would be on the way.
Yeah, I
Right?
think so. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah, that's
these
right.
days the generation just wants it very quick and right now, right away. So would you like to say something around that? Because
So that doesn't work, because it's not like anything which you can take casually, because there are people's lives at stake. Uh, I remember a situation which happened not very far back in 2017. We were on a trek in Himachal, and a huge storm broke out. And I recognize the storm as not like a passing shower or a thunderstorm, but like a weather system which was kind of settling into the area. And in that situation, you have to then take a precautionary view, and we decided to descend. And later I learned that more than 20 people died in Himachal, in the area where we were.
Wow.
So these situations do happen, but there is no shortcut to kind of learning or going about it in in an organized way. So my thought on that is that you cannot do any shortcuts in matters like this when people's safety is at stake.
So when you say that, so what, so because you were so happy and you were so it was so joyful for you to be in mountains, did that keep you going, of learning more skills around it, how to be with people, what all to look for? Or is it like, was it also like a 9 to 5 job, like in Citibank, where you got pressurized and you got bored? Have you, did you ever get bored while trekking?
No, I don't think so. I think the trekking format is such a fun format. You go there. I think the friends which I've made during the trekking process, I don't think I made in any other way, because you're in close contact with a lot of people, and the whole process is very, very different. So I really enjoyed that. And I think now I hang around more with most of my trekking group. I don't meet too many other folks because there's such a deep connection is built up over the years.
Yeah.
I really like that, and enjoy that.
So what are the kind of questions that come up to you when people have to start trekking? If there are people here on this platform who would really like to trek, so what are the starting tips? What would you like to say to them? Like, how do you start?
So what I've noticed a very interesting pattern between all the people who come and approach me. I think I would have taken now over 500 people into the mountains over the years. So in the first time they meet me, they bug the living daylights out of me with too many questions. Like many of the questions include, how do I get a shower? How do I go to the loo? They're scared of that. Then many people have a phobia of creepy crawlies. Will a snake come and enter my tent? Or will I step on a snake? These kind of fears are there, and some people have ailments, some pains here and there, which are minor, but in their mind they have exaggerated that pain as if it's worse than coronavirus. So that way they get a bit bogged down. Then I've noticed that when they do their first trek, in the second trek they don't ask even one question. They just say, where are we going? They just pack their bag and they turn up. And in the third trek they do, the questions again come back, and the questions this time are that, can I do a difficult trek? Can I do a tougher trek? Can you increase the challenge level?
Mhm.
So this is the kind of pattern which I've noticed in people. And it's interesting because it's essentially we are all living in a scenario where we have got these mindsets. These mindsets then decide how we think, and how we kind of conduct ourselves. So initially the mindset is very, very kind of circumspect. In the second time they know that I can manage it. I can do a lot better than I kind of visualized I could. And then they want to even take a step forward further. So this is very interesting observation which I've seen of people, and I think that relates not only to a trek, it can relate to our day-to-day lives as well. That we're all living inside in kind of a situation where we are not willing to move out of our comfort zone, and we keep thinking and analyzing, and it's normally we kind of become little, I would say, pessimistic, diffident. So that tends to happen.
So how would you like to compare the normal life with the trekking, and what all, what all have you learned in life that is so similar to our basic life, day-to-day life we are living through trekking? Like the challenges of the day-to-day life, how does trekking helps fight them?
So I would feel that I remember one day I was with a mother and a daughter on a trek, and I told the mother that we're going tomorrow to climb the peak. So mother was said, I don't know if I can do it, and she was circumspect whether she can really manage it. And 15 minutes later, she's telling her daughter that you got only 80% in your exams. Why can't you push for 90? And you can do a lot better. So I find it weird that the mother is not willing to move out of her comfort zone, and is then pushing the child to do something which is out of her comfort zone as well.
Right.
So both have to analyze it, that how do you move out of your comfort zone and rather than stay there, So this is the dilemma I face with a lot of people. They keep putting themselves down. They can do a lot more better, but that's the
So you
way.
mean to say practice what you preach, like the mother was not like being herself, that
Exactly.
energy yet.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you really have to, so that really works. So practicing yourself and become an example to the world.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
that's when it's tangible.
And the process for that, Aradhana, is that as you log in more and more challenges, then you're able to defeat those negative thoughts, one by one. It's not something which I can say to somebody that, which will wash away their fears in a second. It's not going to happen like that. It's a process where a person has to log in, I would say, success after success. And in that way, you will eventually kind of overcome those mindsets which have kind of seeped into your mind.
Yeah, I would second that, because I've been with you on the treks and I know it's like sometimes you're really giving up and you're like literally into those moments where you're like, oh, you really can't do anymore. And then you come from behind, you can do it, come on, you can do it. And and everybody, and you're looking at everyone, that you get that courage of doing, and then you're like, wow, you did it. And I remember I was like, my first trek on my way back, I was like very low and I was, kind of giving up and going very slow. And when you and my other trek of mates just came to, make me joyful and, distract me, started talking here and there. So that actually, and suddenly I felt that, oh, I've finished my trek. And it was such a joyous moment. So can you talk more about that, how you perceive that, who is going slow and what is it, and and I was so amazed to look at the energies that you had. And I'm like, oh, he's so present with everybody, like who's going low, who's going up, who needs some talk, who needs that bullshit talk right now, and where you can just make them laugh, like how, and you don't even know where you walked that. So can you say more about that?
No, I think from the benefit of those who are not on a trek, there are moments who have never done trekking. There are moments on a trek where you are mentally and physically very exhausted. There are times like that, and I think that's when a good team and everybody around you, if they play a good supporting role, it helps everybody. So it's on a trek. It's not that they're a bunch of individuals; they're actually one team. And different people play a supporting role in different ways, and that's what is one of the things I like about the concept of trekking and the fact that you're out there. In our day-to-day lives in at home here, we don't see so much of that. We some people will show concern if you're having an issue, but how bothered they are and how they are willing to support you, it obviously there will be support, but in a trek, the format is that they will come and really support you. Like I remember Aradhana on one of the treks, she was diagnosed with dengue, and she was not able to kind of virtually not able to trek at some point because the body had shut down. And we arranged a rescue. So many people came and supported in that way. Somebody's carrying medicine, somebody's doing something. So these are scenarios which can happen, and but the good thing is that, and when the team's all together, it's nice, to.
So I totally acknowledge the team leader here, because you know who to get what role and where to get. So how do you do that? Is it like inborn in you, or is it like, because I never see, I mean, I've seen you also going through the pressures at times there in the hills, but yet you never show that pressure. You are like up there, that you're so fresh. And I'm like, how does this guy have so much of energy in him? Like
I think,
you're falling, but you're there.
I feel that that a lot of people have what I use the word niggles. Niggles is the term I use to describe small aches and pains or issues in their mind, and they build it up to such an extent that they sometimes they let that get better of them. I remember 4 months before the trek to Bhutan, which we went in 2017. I remember you were having a major knee issue. I remember partially lifting your skirt and seeing your knee. It was looking slightly.
That was a great chance to lift my skirt, no, Maninder?
So it was looking slightly kind of swollen up. And I remember all the doctors told you that avoid trekking at all
Yes,
cost. And,
yes.
so, but I remember you said, give me some time, let me analyze it. And we said, let's see closer to the date. And couple of weeks before the trek, you came back and said, I'll do it. So I think a person who's got good mental strength and has that feeling that they can pull it off, which I think you have gathered because of, all the experiences you have had. So I feel that that's something really positive.
Yeah.
And I remember now looking back, you did the trek so easily, so it would have been a real
And I
shame.
forgot, I really forgot that I had knee pain. And I remember somebody coming and asking me, how's your knee pain? I said, what knee pain? I'm like, I'd forgotten totally. I was totally away. And since then, I never happened it again until now. I've
Yeah.
recreated it. But then for 3 years, I've been trekking after that. I think it was amazing. Yeah. But that's amazing. So how do you instill what you actually learn on the trekking? What would you like to say when you learn from trekking experiences, the value of life, the value of being in silence? Because I remember first trek I went and you were like, no music, you're not putting earpods in your head ears, and just enjoy the nature. And I'm like, itna lamba, who will walk this much? He's not letting me. And he's like, no, you have to be very present.
Mm.
I'm like, oh, you can't even do this much.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, I'll take it off. And you just suggested and went away. And I'm like, okay, he knows better. So I gave up and okay, fine, let me listen. So could you say more around that?
No, my assessment was that, like we are living in a bottled up environment, traffic and city life and cell phones and that kind of stuff. So I feel that when we get the opportunity of being away, we should kind of dump that, our
Yes.
phones, music and things like that. And, just kind of, there's a lovely term they use in Japan, which is called forest bathing, which they refer to a situation that is therapeutic if a person walks in a forest once a month.
Mhm.
It gives it a lot of medical and health benefits are there. So similarly, I think when you're away in the mountains in nature, uh, how are you going to absorb it? With these earphones which you're wearing now,
Mhm.
this is something which you don't need on a trek. You can't be listening to music while
Yeah.
walking. There's a sound of a lovely stream, there's sound of birds, all that going around, the breeze, the pine needles. So you got to absorb all that, and
Yeah.
that.
The best thing I learned was every time I've trekked and I'm actually there are times when I'm actually crying on the trek when I'm totally alone and I'm just like, and that is from the pure silence within myself.
Mm.
And it's actually feels like such a communion with everything and something which you have been looking, but then I've always experienced that, oh, it's right here with me. And I've been working hard to find that in the world. It just, and that's always gives me the whole thing that why everybody earlier used to say that when you have to meditate you go to the mountains, because you are such a strenuous space and place right there that you just cannot think of anything other than focusing what you're moving, and each step matters. So, and but yet I've seen a lot of people going through those emotional issues plus the mental and the physical issues while climbing up. And there have been kind of, not, I won't say the casualties, but yes, some people who had to get down and you have to get them down. How do you deal with that kind of a pressure when you, I mean, I've seen that, but I would like people to know about it, that how do you deal and what is that whole emotional thing going in your head at that point of time when people are like, almost to die, kind of, having those AMF, the hill sickness and stuff. So can you talk more about that?
But I think what I've learned is that in life we have to have a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C, because in mountains, whatever plan you go with, every time, virtually 80% of the time, things are vastly different on the ground than what you had planned. So, and I think that happens even if you're running a business or you're doing anything in life. So it's good to have a plan B in place and quickly have the ability to switch to it. And I normally, the way I do it is that I try to build a consensus, because they're always in a trek or in a group. There some people who have had who have had experience. They have the ability to contribute, understand the situation. So you get down to that and do it. So I think it works out in that way. I've kind of done it now for so many years. It's become little comfortable for me, to take those calls.
Yeah. So, but then what was the initial day? Was it like your first trek you went and then somebody was unwell? First time anybody felt unwell? What emotions did you went through and how did you like kind of held there? Because that is very important. These are very little steps which kind of motivate people. And I, as I was mentioning to you before I started this, that, me going through a lot of stuff right now in my life, personal life was like, but that make me remind a lot of my stuff in my trekking time, and then I remember a lot of people who I've heard so many years down the line, and that one point sometimes triggers me, and it's like, okay, never give up. At that time, this is the person who was going through some shit and had nothing left, and then they're like, okay, I did this, but now I see them as very different person creating such great lives in this. I'm like, okay, they never gave up, so I'm not going to give up. So these are, and what
So,
actually went.
I think
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think rather it's not about me only, it's about the people around, So
Yeah,
I call everybody a character. Everybody has their own aspects. Like if somebody is walking behind you, I'll just describe the scene to people
yeah.
because I've trekked a lot behind you. You have got the best gear on the trek and the tightest gear. I don't know how you're
You're
moving
talking
around.
about me? I thought you were talking something. Now the tightest gear made me think that it's about me. All right, I'm listening.
Like even if an ant was to creep through, it would struggle. So I think the group it's actually made up of lots of people. Everybody brings their own energy aspect to it. I'm just I would call a catalyst in it. I'm not. I would not say I'm engineering everything. I just take the decisions which are critical or participate in those. But it's everybody's energy which comes together and
Yeah,
kind of creates the whole vibe. So
yeah,
I think you bring that, there are others in the group who bring that, and
yeah,
that's how it
definitely.
kind of moves along.
Right. So there's guys, when I trek, we have an amazing evening when we get together and we have our dinners together and we sit and everybody's looking forward for a story from Maninder Kohli because he really loves giving the stories. So I would like to know what is behind those stories and what actually started making him give those stories, because those are the stories we all wait for and we like, okay, Maninder Kohli, give us a story now, and it's all spiced up and it's not, everybody knows it's spiced up, it's fun, but it's so amazing to listen to stories. So what is behind those stories, Maninder? What made you start doing those stories?
No, see, the thing is that in the mountains, I'm not making up stories. I'm just narrating incidents.
You're just
So
spicing it up, I
I
might.
come through. I've come to through so many incidents which have happened on treks, and in a lighter moment when you discuss it later, they are. I would say they are interesting. Let me quickly narrate one
Yes, I was
of
about to say that.
of
Narrate
this
one.
girl, this girl, lovely girl who lived in Panchil called Anu Sukani. And this was one of the earlier treks which I was heading on. And uh, I asked her what she said. She wants to apply for a trek. I said, "What is your fitness schedule?" She says, "I walk 2 rounds of Rose Garden." Now, Rose Garden, if anybody's been in Delhi, is like a senior citizens kind of park, which is maybe 1 kilometer or maybe maximum 1.5 kilometer. It's very, very friendly walking. So I knew immediately that this girl will struggle. But she was so persuasive that I was not able to ward her off. So I said, okay, fair enough, you come along. So this particular girl struggled so much on the trek. She needed one porter or I would say a senior guide with her perpetually holding a hand. And that guy also came to me saying that I can't deal with this lady. She's not moving, and he's telling her, "ये पत्थर है, ये पत्थर आपका पैर की इंतजार कर रहा है, पैर बढ़ाइए. ये दूसरा पत्थर पैर की इंतजार कर रहा है, आप पैर बढ़ाइए." Motivating her to move at a faster pace. This lady is thinking that it's like a dynamite below, it will blow up. So I'm seeing the situation, and she kept going, and finally, our objective was to reach this Maldaru Lake, where we reached at 5:30, just at sunset. She was physically tired, but she had made it, and there were tears in her eyes, but they had frozen. So it was a glazed kind of look, I remember. And but when this lady came down, she's walking with me on the return journey, and she says, I have one fantasy left. I want you to fulfill that fantasy. So I'm wondering, now what's on her mind. So she said, I want to climb a tree. So she was kind of remembering her younger days, I guess. And she didn't have the ability to climb a tree. I think her legs, muscles had gone worn out completely. She just needed to be plonked up on a tree. So we did that. But the amazing thing with this girl was that she came back and she figured out that Rose Garden is done for. And she started running marathons. And 2, 3 years back, she even ran a full marathon, which is
Wow.
42 kilometers. So she's come a long way, and she later confided with me that I had come to believe that 2 rounds of Rose Garden was what I needed, and I'm happy that I was able to kind of break the shackles on that thought. And
Wow. So,
well, so
how we get comfortable in that little space, whereas there's so much of a world possible beyond that. And that actually like kind of just opens up when you're actually willing to go beyond those comfort zones of yours. That's so amazing. So if what really is, what is the change? Because now so many people really, really want to go for trekking. There was this word trekking was not kind of earlier so much known, like very few treks and some people going on the Everest. And this year the Everest had like, traffic jam. So could you say more? What is actually taking everybody to trek? What is it, like a the thing to do, or is it something more than that?
So I think it's a great stress buster. I think the people's perception of trekking is very different because they're not exposed to it much. Uh, the people who have been in boarding schools, the kids have been exposed to it. But those who have never had the exposure on trekking, they perceive it as a dangerous activity, which is sad to
Right.
see. Uh, People like, let's say in Europe, when their children are 4 or 5 years old, they start taking them for treks, and it really has a major impact on the kids' personality. The saying that they become more outdoor, they become more develop a sense of humor. There's a different vibe of a person who is doing bunch of activities and a person who's held back. And I, I I see that a lot with the foreigners because they just do more stuff than Indians here. We are doing more uh, academic stuff. I don't think we do enough in terms of outdoor stuff, and especially adventure. We hardly do. So um, I think the other aspect is that trekking is not fully hardcore. Also, today you have options where you can stay in nice mountain homes and do day treks, which means that it's become more easier for people to manage it, and that's a good way to start. So it just needs people to be a little bit positive and say, I want to get out in nature, let me get fit, let me kind of explore, let me get
Yeah.
do some adventure.
So can you say more about when you say kids? So do people take a lot of kids, and have you changed seeing those kids' perspectives? Like, did that really matter? Was it that parents just took the kids for the trek and then after that the kid has totally changed? And does it really impact their future? Can you talk about that?
So like I grew up as a child in Sydney in Australia, and in Sydney the kids are only playing sports day long. There's nothing else to do, and whether it's rugby, swimming. I remember when I joined school, they asked who doesn't know swimming in the class, and they said it's mandatory to know swimming before you start studying. And I was sent for coaching for swimming. So it's a very outdoor life, and the personality of a person changes a lot. I feel if they persist with it, it's just not that you just go for 1 2 day trek and you will change. But if you persist with this, you will definitely see a lot of confidence building. You will see a kind of a desire to take on challenges. This kind of rub off does happen, I
Yeah.
feel.
Because I
So
remember a lot of kids went with our trek also, and then thereafter where they were not really, really interested, but the family took them. And after that, they were really like, can we go for another trek? And then I remember creating a trek for kids.
right.
So, and your kids also been now, of course, they're grown up kids now, but they also started with it. So initially, sometimes kids don't really enjoy it, but then what changed and how that perspective changed? What actually changed in them when they were on the trekking? Did you notice that? Was it like something parents really came back to you and said thank you to you, and that something has changed in them?
So I think some parents have persisted with their children doing treks. I think the greatest, easiest one I've seen is Varun Gunaselan. He's a boy from Chennai who came in, and he's now done over 75 to 80 treks in
Wow.
the last
Yeah,
10
he's
years.
amazing.
He's done a lot, and he's running marathons overseas and things like that. So there have been profound changes. He's given TED talks also. So that's something gives me a lot of pride to see. So it depends on an individual how much they can grab their opportunity. For my own kids, I remember that I started them on trekking, and at some point um, there was a desire to do something else. Then they introduced them to skiing. It's a more adrenaline, more fast-paced aspect. And then later on, when they said we are fed up with the mountains, take us somewhere else. So I introduced them to deep sea diving. So in a way, I feel that a holiday, if it's got some kind of adventure around it, wherever it is, it makes it more purposeful and more fun. And
Yeah.
so that's how I've kind of
But I'm
pursued.
really grateful for you to introducing this to India, because I have seen abroad, the worldwide people are into a lot of sports activities and they're with the kids. But India didn't have that. And, pioneers like you and other people who have started these trekking groups is amazing that, at least giving a chance. But there also been time when I've seen that parents have this, like, how can my kid go? Will the child be able to do this trek? And is it safe for the child to do the trek? So can you say more for people who probably are joining in and would like to listen to this?
Yeah, so I think that's a natural concern because they themselves have never gone, and
Yes.
typically what their parents would have told them that these mountains are dangerous and things like that. This is what I hear from everybody. In my case, I was from a mountaineering family, so that issue didn't ever come up. But I think that does come up. But over time, as and when people break out of that and they test it and try it out, uh, then they realize that if it's well organized in a safe manner, in a properly organized way, it's safe and perfectly fine. There is no question of any risk. Especially children treks are conducted in a manner where you go to places where you're in wide trails. There's no risk in any way, and it's shorter duration. Um, and there's no better format than a parent and children camping together, trekking together. It's a lovely format, great bonding within the family. So all the parents who have done that, I think they've definitely given a gift to their children, which they will long remember. Because um, when people at, let's say, 35, 40 come to me for a trek and they've never done it, they struggle to get going. But those who have done it in their early teens and that age group, then they kind of settle in very fast. So it's, I think it's a
So,
good idea to do
so
it.
what are the key things that you would like to say that, trekking gifts you, and what will you tell people to motivate themselves to start trekking or get in any physical activity like this and outdoor, taking the family holidays like these? So what are your key points to that?
So I don't want to sound like a broken record on trekking. That is great and everything. I just feel that we have to go out and enjoy nature. You could be doing a mountain drive, you could be even anywhere, just enjoy the outdoors. And I think if you, as and when you build up your stamina and your fitness, you will yourself only be encouraged to step it up and do something a little more challenging. And that's how it's happened, like for all our trekking groups, they started in a very, let's say, casual way, and then over time they were able to build it up and keep doing tougher challenges. And I see so much change in them over the years. Everybody.
Hmm.
If you see in a party, there's like 20 trekkers and 20 other folks. You will notice a big difference in the way they're talking or the way their fitness is. The whole
Can you
vibe
give
is
us
very
can
different.
you give us one example that how it really makes a difference? Like, is that the lifestyle becomes better, or they're more healthier lifestyle? What is it like? What one change that you have really noticed in most of the people?
So I think there's a difference in fitness which is comes out of doing physical activity, and difference in fitness by dieting. Okay,
Mhm.
you can look fit by eating less and kind of being very careful with your diet. Fair enough, I have that benefit. But if you're able to achieve that same kind of goal by doing physical activity, it is all the more better. In the sense, I feel that is more sustainable and more healthy. So that is one aspect. Second is when you go to these mountains, you meet a lot of village people. We meet them in the beginning of the trek and the end of the trek, and some of the porters, and they live a very humble life, and uh, they work in a very close knit community to help each other. I think the way they conduct their life also has a rub off. I've seen that more and more people who have been going regularly on treks, they start adopting a more minimalistic kind of lifestyle and a little bit more calmer kind of mental demeanor.
Mhm.
So that aspect, I think, is also nice to see. So I would say these are some of the fitness, and then I guess a feeling of challenge and achieving something. So it does have an impact on your
And it
personality.
does give you a lot of endurance to move in life. Like it
Right.
really makes you. And I know, because for me it does at times, like when I'm literally messed up in my regular life here. I'm like, that time I remember my mountains, and I remember every time it was so difficult, and I just stood there and took a breath, and I'm like, it's okay, I can still move. And that guys really helps me, like, because every time I'm like kind of dying in this reality, I'm like, oh. And then I remember that, and like, okay, if you could do there, you can do it here too. So I never thought I could do those treks, which, like, I remember the first time I jumped into a 14-day trek with to Gokyo. And that was amazing. And people kept asking, why did you jump into a 14-day trek? I was like, I didn't even know what trekking meant. But the beauty with trekking with Maninder Juniper Outdoor Private Limited, that is what it is called, is amazing, is because as he's been talking about this whole communion with everyone, the whole group as a team, as it sounds like a family walking, and it's like a set of, each one has respect and honor for yourself. And especially adding to that is Shamala Kohli, his wife, who really adds to it. And she's so warm. Both of them have been so warm and hospitable. And it's such a nurturance they bring. If somebody really isn't well on the trek, I would like to add, it's more than anybody even has done it for you at home. So that's how, when everybody collects, and not only these two, looking, I mean, the whole team. I remember when I was sick, and I started crying and howling at one point, because it wasn't from the pain, or it wasn't that I was feeling that I'm dying. It was from the space that I have never been so kind to myself as everybody was being to me. That changed my whole life. I'm like, wow, that. And I always was asking, is that possible? But the way everybody took care like a baby, and they brought me like a baby out, making fun and the joke, and making me laugh all the while, that memory can never get out of my molecular structure. It's like so embedded in me, and I'm so grateful, and I do send my gratitude to each one every day.
No, I
So
remember that trek because we didn't have a stretcher and you were unable to walk.
yeah.
And so we had to pick out two very handsome porters
I remember.
who will take you on your back. So they were doing this 20-minute shuttle, and I asked one of the guys who had just carried you. He was taking a break. We were walking together, and I said, "How's this lady? She's quite thin. You must be easy for you." He's saying she's thin from the top, but as the body goes down to the waist side, there is a expansion, and there is a kind of accumulation of some fat there. So that is, she's
So
not
Maninder,
as nice as she looks.
your trekking could not take that off. No, but I'm so grateful, and
Having
I
a
never
wine
thought.
every day, obviously, you've got
uh,
to control your drinking.
Here you go for that. Cheers. So, but that actually, the kindness everybody bees, and that whole coming together, what we guys believe, trust, that is possible. You actually see when you trek. And I think for me, I haven't trekked with anybody else, and I don't think I will be trekking with anybody else. Never say never. But yet, the warmth and the nurturing and the caring Juniper brings is amazing. So anybody who really wants to trek for the first trek at least, you should be only be with the Juniper, because the I think I have never been so cared for even here, like as I've been more cared with them on that trek. And I remember one of the times we had this. It was almost like a casualty. Like the person was almost kind of dying, and the quick actions which they took and the whole team effort was amazing. Can you talk a bit about that? Because I remember that person had been trekking for a bit. My roommate Sandhya, and then she had that whole incident, and what was going on in your head at that point, Mananda? How to save her?
So the thing is that in Nepal is one of the treks where we hit altitude quite quickly, and it can happen that somebody gets an altitude sickness. So you have to be prepared for that, and then take a decision. I recollect walking with her, and she started feeling a little uncomfortable, and I was then we kept going, and eventually she reached this point where she started throwing up, which was a sign that it's her altitude issues are kicking in further. And then we quickly got a guy called Pasang. He was our lead Sherpa on that trek. He was like virtually, I would call him looking like a tractor, huge guy, 4 feet wide. So he just very casually took her on his back, and I said, "Move her fast." We were luckily not more than 3-4 kilometers from Gokyo, which had a medical center. And so we send in one guy in front saying that get the doctor down from the medical center. He came down, and we had a satellite phone. We called for a helicopter, and within an hour of reaching, we had sent her to Kathmandu. Shamila, my wife, went along with her, and within 20 minutes of landing in Kathmandu, she was fine. And in the night, both the girls were partying. So
Yeah, I
these things
remember.
do happen in some of the treks, altitude treks, and but if you've gone through the protocol and taken the precautions and kind of being ready for it, then you can, I
So
guess.
which gives that you are really, really present with everyone, Maninda, which I've seen you. Like you guys are really present with every person who's trekking. So what gives you that strength? Like, I've seen people falling, but touch wood, like it's the strength you keep on and the way you keep moving on. And everybody will go off to sleep and you'll still keep checking on to everyone individually that hope everybody's fine. What is that secret in you? I
Yeah,
adore that about you. It's so
no,
amazing.
I think for me I think the aspect is that we are belong to a kind of a trekking group. We're all kind of friends as well. We're not doing a online sign up and we're just kind of going. So there is that deep connection which we have with everybody, and also as I was mentioning earlier that you have to take the responsibility of managing these treks very seriously. At the end of the day, you have these elements and anything can happen, but then there are also a lot of precautions you can take at your end to try and navigate these issues. So that's how
Yeah.
I've been kind
And
of.
I would like to say, I think Maninder always keeps the humor on. Unless his humor is not there, we really can't walk. So everybody requires him on the trek a little bit more. Like, okay, if he comes around, he'll say a line and you'll start laughing, and then you'll forget the pain and the aches, and you'll start moving. That's such a beautiful capacity. And every time anybody says that laughter makes things more easy, it reminds me of him. And I'm so grateful to know him. And I mean, I'm always less short of words of expressing about what he is, what a gift he has been. So, guys, if you really, really want to have a trekking experience, go with him. I think I would vouch it
You're
110%.
sounding like my sales manager, Radha.
I am, but I adore that, and I really would like to invite people, and I do it personally also. But on this platform, I would really, from any place in the world, guys, if you want to come do a trek in Himalayas, he's the guy. Get in connect, and his company would be mentioned here in the chat here, Juniper Outdoor Private Limited. That is how we connect with you.
Yeah, yeah.
Manoj. Yeah. So anything else you would like to say? And today this thing of Sushant saying how it's. I know you're not much into the media, but it's about also when people give up lives. What would you like to say a bit about it? Like depressions and stuff. Can you say a little bit about that? What is your lookout
what,
on that?
what my experience is that, that when people are preparing for the treks, when I see them, they prepare in two ways. One is physically and one is mentally. The physical aspect is sometimes even lower than the mental aspect. And so those who tend to do well on trips are the ones who have got good mental strength. And mental strength is something which you have to, it's like an art. You have to acquire it. It's not something which is going to pop in to your head. As I was mentioning, you got to log in success after success and do it. And I think we should all consciously work towards that. I can't really comment on the circumstances he was facing and how he was managing, but uh, at the end of the day, we have to be positive in all these areas. And I would encourage everybody to push themselves a bit, and that will help them. Like I think the best example for this is my father himself. Who led India's first climb of Everest in '65. So whenever I speak to him about what is one comment which he liked to say, which is an inspiration, because 9 Indians got to the top, and it was a very big achievement in that time in 1965 for India. So he says that there are no great human beings, there are only great challenges. And the challenges, the greater the challenges you take, that's what shapes the human being.
Wow.
So it comes down to this, that if you keep pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, pushing, you will finally reach a point where things which would normally have looked little demanding would now start becoming more manageable. And whenever you are in a pressured point, which is a very stressful point, you will be able to overcome that better in that scenario. So that is what I would.
So do you have any magic tool to give when you are, because I have seen you a lot of times with the pressure when you're trekking also, and there's a lot of the whole team. One thing that really goes through your head at that time when you're at the tip of that pressure, what makes you go away from that pressure and make it easy for you? Any tool that you can give us, one handy tool?
So Radhanath, remember that when I'm taking that decision at that point, I have invested many years in reaching that spot.
I totally get that, but sometimes sometimes some tools stays with you.
I feel that the best tool would be that you have to be very, very positive and take a clear-headed decision. Whether you're going down or you're going up. That's essentially.
And choice always is yours.
Your choices you have to take. And so I feel that more or less, because of the experience I've had and the fact that I take a call based on the circumstances. Sometimes I go up, sometimes I come down.
So what happens? Do you ever feel that you can make a wrong? It might go wrong. This choice might go wrong. So what do you really get that at times?
So that can happen, and I remember one case happened in a trek. We had gone to Sikkim, and so in Sikkim, the big objective is to see this peak called Kanchenjunga, which is our highest peak. And we were trying to go to a viewpoint to see the peak, and we made 3 groups. So one group left at 2 a.m., one group left at 4 a.m., one left at 6 a.m. And each of them were kind of, the 2 a.m. was obviously going much further. And we regrouped at around 1 in the afternoon. It had been a tough day. We'd all spent about 10, 12 hours in the mountains. But one of the groups was very unhappy. They came back to me saying that, they're not very happy with the situation, and they were kind of complaining. And they were in fact telling me that you didn't guide us. And that was the 6 o'clock group. And inherently, what was bothering them was the fact that they took the wrong decision of opting for an easier option rather than going for the tougher one. And they all later regretted it. So I was a bit blamed by everybody that if you had pushed us to an earlier group, we would have taken it. So it was a feedback which I took. But at that point in time, I had essentially left the decision within the group to take a decision based on what they said, kind of were comfortable with. So I think the learning for me on that was that sometimes if you don't take an opportunity which presents itself, the 2-3 extra hours of living with that pain of climbing was partial compared to the pain of coming back and not having done it.
Yeah.
So that was something which came up as a
Yeah.
discussion point later.
On that, my nanny always used to say, "मौके का आगा होता है, पीछा नहीं होता," which is like the opportunity always knocks at your door. If you hold it or it's gone. So yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Are there any questions, guys, that you guys want me to ask? Don't see any questions. Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure, Maninder, and hope this talk really invites more and more people into trekking, of choosing more and having more endurance in life and to keep going. And thank you. It was beautiful talking to you.
No, thanks for inviting me, Adam.
All right. Thank you everyone for showing up, and see you next week at 7 p.m. with the next guest. Awesome. Thank you.